Hello guys, how are we doing? Welcome back to the channel. One of the biggest map mode combinations that rely heavily on having the right map position, map control, and spawn control is Rewind Hardpoint. It's relatively new to Black Ops 6 Ranked play. It came out again maybe a month or so ago after a long break of it being out of the Black Ops 6 Ranked play and the CDL rotation. But it's here to stay. Obviously, champs around the corner, and then there's no more CDL, so it's probably going to be in for the foreseeable future, all the way up until Black Ops 7, I think it's called, comes out in this later on this autumn. Now we're going to be looking at a pro gameplay, a CDL gameplay between Faze and Optic. And for those of you who aren't interested in the CDL, don't worry, this video is definitely still going to be for you. I found a really nice map where Faze eventually win 4 points, but both teams have real good examples in this gameplay of very intelligent, very strategic plays that you can replicate, whether you're a solo queue or a quad stack team in Black Ops 6 Ranked play itself. Now, as I say, it's one of the biggest maps where having the right spawns or having the right map control is pivotal in getting the victory. If you've ever played Rewind Hardpoint and you don't quite have the right map control, or you don't quite have the right spawns, it's like banging your head against a brick wall. So we're going to be going through today where your focus should be as players across the map, and hopefully identify if you're an SMG player, this is probably where you should be. If you're an AR player, this is what they're doing. And we're going to be, as I say, highlighting things that these two pro teams do that you can definitely do in your own gameplay. Now, we're not going to be looking at the really finite details here where a certain player does a really certain thing that helps the team. I'm not going to be looking at that. I'm not going to be looking at gunfights or movement, because at the end of the day, that's covered in many other videos of mine. Today is all about strategy and how you can play the map strategically to get the team the best chances of winning. So, without further ado, let's jump into the gameplay. So I'm actually going to zoom in on the minimap just here. Hopefully there's not too much in the screen here. But what's really nice off the start is that you can see how much emphasis the green team is, Optic, having to the new spawn. So for those of you who don't know, P2 is over on this left-hand side here, and that's it's a really important hill to have control of this left-hand side, because if you have the spawns towards P2, you're going to be spawning close to P2. It's going to make it really easy to hold. It's going to make your kills matter more, because at the end of the day, if you're Optic and you've got the left-hand side control here, Faze are going to be spawning all the way out over here if you've got the spawn. So that's why you can see there's already an emphasis on someone from Optic to try and flip these spawns here. And it's Shotsy, so it's not necessarily always on the AR to rotate. It is also on the SMG, and that one kill, as you can see, has opened up the spawn for Optic, and now they're spawned on this left-hand side of the map, which should be the focus throughout P1 if you can. Once you do have that side, that's when you sort of play for P1. You don't want to give up too much of P1, but let's see how they do it here. And you can see what's really lovely as well is that even though Shotsy's managed to just get the spawns on this left-hand side, he's also managed to push right, and now they've got like full map coverage. There's no way for the white team in Faze to leak through the left-hand side, because the greens are everywhere. Okay, Shotsy's gone from this street all the way to the bottom here, knowing that this whole area is clear. Now Optic are at the point where they don't really have to worry about flipping the spawns now, because they already have them. All they really need to worry about now is P1 and keeping the spawns. So some really nice gunfight wins here. And as you can see, as soon as those kills are being had, you can see the Optic players are sort of take a little backward step there just to make sure that the enemy team aren't spawning out. You can also notice that nobody on Optic is pushed too far through the hill, because that can cause a flip. So what they're doing, they're guaranteeing that Faze has the worst spawns they have. Now, what Faze have to do, they have to now worry about not only getting a decent amount of time on P1, but also managing to rotate themselves successfully through to P2. So a really nice play that all stems from that initial kill at Shotsy towards Burger Town. So you're sensing that Faze are sort of trying to infiltrate the defense and get towards the P2. Fortunately, they've lost pivotal gunfights, and as those gunfights are being lost, this player here doesn't go to the hill. They run all the way through to the spawn. That completely blocks Optic from spawning over this left-hand side. If you take a look at that number 5's positioning, as Optic spawn in, there's no way Optic are going to be spawning over here because of the player, because of Draza number 5's positioning. And that's really something key. I see so many people in this position right here. That player would then go to the hill or go to find the last player up. No, Draza's instead understood that his team had managed to get several kills and then tried to push the good spawns out to flip again. So really good play from Draza there. Good play from the team generally, just to get the spawns and get the kills that matter. Optic have got to be winning them gunfights at the end of the day. Someone in a recent video said that this might be a little bit too big, and I apologize if that is the case. But that's the important thing. When you're watching the CDL and you want to learn how to move around the map, seeing the whole map is pivotal. It's really important. Now, a setup for P2 pops, and you can see how much emphasis they have on the very front of the hill, whilst you've got a real island player out here. They're set up so that every lane is covered. Harrz is in a position where he can see anyone coming from this left, this main street, and if anyone goes through this laundry shop or P1, got a view of that, and the rest of the team have got a view of the right hand side here as well. So good setup for Faze. There are no gaps in the defense. That's the main thing. So Harrz, a really big gunfight here again. Hook manages to kill Harrz, and as a result spawns Simp all the way out. And as you can see, they're not only it's not up to Hook, or it's not up to a single player, it's not up to a single AR or an SMG player to try and get the spawns. You can see whoever's in the best position to do it is doing it, and in that situation, it was Hook who's trying to go and flip the spawn. So even though Abeezy's alive back here, because of Hook's position, he's forcing Simp to spawn out. If Hook stays alive as Optic get kills, Faze will always spawn out, meaning that they've then got the beneficial spawns to the new hill. Now, bear in mind that if Mercury spawns in, because of Abeezy's positioning, he's also going to spawn out, which is where you then get the split or parallel spawns. But Hook's done a really good job here of just getting into the enemy defense, yeah, trying to spawn Faze out. Now, actually, Mercury spawns in because Abeezy's positioning wasn't necessarily as far deep enough as it should have been, or as close to it as it should have been. But a really huge gunfight from Abeezy in the back there. Again, I'm looking at that number 7 player on the bottom left, getting the kills, staying alive, and you can see Optic are now getting split spawns with Faze towards the right-hand side of the map. And that's happened because both Faze and Optic have got players towards the left-hand side of the map staying alive as the other team is spawning in. But you can see how much emphasis there are towards those spawns there. And as it gets to the 20-second mark, you can see the shift from Faze. Instead of going for the back spawns, they go, you know what? We want this side of the map controlled because P3's here. Okay, we want this right-hand side map control for P3, so I'm not going to force it too much. We're going to let them have a little bit. We're going to let them have the back spawns, and yeah, so be it.
2 for 2 so far until Mercury's the difference maker.
So Faze aren't too worried about getting like P2 spawns at this point because they can set for P3 easier from the right-hand side. So it's something that's quite important to note, is that if you're so far through a hard point where you think it's better off just to rotate and get the spawns to the new hill, do that instead. So P3 pops, and you can see, as I say, the right-hand side of the map is the best side for P3 and P4 spawns, and you can see how much emphasis Optic are putting on this right-hand side. They haven't gone from P2 directly to P3 through the middle or even through the left street. They've sent one player to contest the hill, and they've sent the rest of the team to go through middle of the right-hand side because they know how important those back spawns are.
But they're already a big break. We'll see if it gets better because they do have the spawns, but already pressure on this piece.
And they're doing a really good job, actually. They're not pushed up quite enough yet. They're managing to support the hill. They're not 100% sure what they're doing. They seem to commit towards the flip, and they then didn't. But all it takes is to get a few kills there, and you can see how sticky those right-hand side spawns are. So what's really nice is the position of both teams here. They're quite spread out. They've got a lot of the map covered here, but you can see there's always an emphasis on this right-hand side. Faze aren't running out of spawn towards the hill, dying and dying over again. They're making sure they're stopping players from Optic getting to this right-hand side because they know P4 on Rewind Hardpoint can be an easy 60-second hold every single time.
He knows he is the one player that probably has to deal with this spawn.
So again, although Optic have got a really good amount of time here, Faze have managed to win the gunfights. Faze are holding that right-hand side spawn. This looks favourable for Faze because they've still got that right-hand side spawn.
Here's a big test for Faze again. You have the P4 rotation a couple of seconds before this is going to pop. Can Optic find another break? We have a classic in the making. Optic Texas, big off their breaks. They are up early. Let's go to a listen-in.
So I know they're about to go to a listening, but P4's setup is quite nice here. You've got players spread out across the map. You've got the left lane covered. You've got the middle courtyard covered by player number 5 in Harrz. You've got the right-hand street covered by Abeezy. You then got Cell getting the time, but not just sat in time waiting for enemies to get to him. He's actually looking out the window at the street as well. So you've got players who are not only sat blocking the spawn at the back, which is what Abizi's job is. You've got players pushed past the hill trying to be that first line of defense before Optic get anywhere near the objective. You can see here at Sim's position, he's so far up there, and he can be because you've got Abizi sat in the depths here. He's so far up there, he's forcing Optic to take damage before they even get anywhere near the current objective, and that's so important. But hopefully you can see from here how much emphasis FaZe have got and why they put so much emphasis on the right hand side of the map, because it's so important for a really solid P4 hold. So Shotzzy managed to somehow leak through, which is obviously not ideal. I'm intrigued as to how that happened, actually. Oh, he got a little bit of a time in here. So Mercules was in a gunfight with Draz. Yeah, and he just leaked through. So that's a good play from Shotzzy, some good trigger discipline to just leave Draz out, get into the spawn. But I think he's not pushed far out enough. So although he's managed to get the hill, FaZe are still spawning in the back. FaZe are then forced to push the objective, they die and they spawn out. So a really nice play from Shotzzy there, just leaving that objective open. But FaZe have done just as good a job to hold that real backside. And because they've held that backside, they've enabled Abizi to just, instead of running all the way back to the hill, Abizi can then, because Abizi spawned where player number 1 was, where Hook was here, he's just run there, and he can easily cut the map in half from that position. So again, both teams fight for that right hand side. It's super sticky. If there's one thing you do on Rewind, it's make sure that P4 you have the right hand side map control, and it's so much easier to win the map. I'm going to try and pause it less as the map progresses, but I'll just point out things that highlight what I've been trying to say in the rest of the video. So Beezy's doing a really good position, strategical play there, because he's just trying to be annoying, trying to like pinch. And you can see the route he took. He actually went all the way around the back side of the map, allowing his team to come off. So I am going to rewind that again. So Beezy goes from Burger. When there's 10 seconds left, by the way, he goes around Burger, he goes all the way around the P2. I'm looking at this player here. And he's playing his life very well. He's waiting for his team. He's not running directly to the hill. He's playing quite carefully, quite cautiously, while the rest of his team pinch from the other side. He waits for his team to get into a decent position. He then gets the first kill. It forces Optic to turn around. Whilst that's happening, the rest of FaZe can then push in, and they're in a position where they're a little bit stuck. FaZe have the numbers. They win the gunfight. So that's all from taking that one player who's not necessarily an AR player. You would normally say, oh, if you're an AR, you rotate early, blah, blah, blah. Abizi's taking the initiative as an FNG player to rotate all the way around the hill, be a real big diversion, and cause the break. Pretty much single-handedly. Obviously, they still need to win the gunfights, but that strategic play is super important. Hills like this, where they're relatively central on the map, it's the same with P1, P3, and P5 here. It's really easy to hold the hill if you can guarantee which side of the map your enemies are spawning on. As you can see from this play here and Abizi's play at the beginning, it becomes completely more difficult as soon as the players in the hill don't know which side they need to look, because then players are split, the comms can get a little bit messy. So that's why it was so important for Abizi and Shotzzy in that position to rotate through the back and try and take advantage of a pinch, essentially. So Optic are trying to maintain this left-hand side here. You can see how much Abizi's being annoying there. We're at a point now where Optic have got control of P1 and they have the better spawns for P2. So let's see how FaZe play this. Really nice. You can see Abizi's tried to leak through here. Again, you can see how important it was for Optic to get that kill on Abizi, because otherwise Optic would have ended up spawning the other side towards like P4. So Optic have done a real good job there, not only going to P1 and holding P1, but also cutting off any attempted pushes from FaZe. But that comes from sort of knowing where they're coming from, and that's why knowing spawns are so important, because they know FaZe is sort of spawning on the left, and the easiest route towards P2 is to run down Burger and get through the back or whatever. So they're able to cut it off. Well, what I'm trying to get through to you guys is that they're you know, they're trying to cut it off. They're not just trying to run to P1 over and over again. They're actively trying to cut off any routes between Faze's initial spawn and the depth of P2. And what's really interesting here is, if I just rewind this a second, P2 has popped and there's nobody on the hill. Now, you could argue Optic could be on the hill at this point, and that, yeah, while I'd probably maybe agree, the reason they're not is just as important as getting on the hill, and it's because they've got two players who are threatening the back spawn of this P2 hold, so they need to kill them off. If they don't kill them, if they don't emphasize that as the focus, then FaZe are likely to get the P2 spawns, get most P2 time, and take more of a lead. So Optic are doing a really good job of just staying alive in that building. As I say, they're not getting on the hill. What's important, if they get on the hill and die, they spawn all the way out towards where player number 4 is, which obviously isn't a good position to be in because they've got a longer route to the hill. Whilst they're in this position, yes, they're not getting time, but they're also stopping FaZe from getting time. So at this point, they're doing a really good job of just trying to stay alive. And that's something that I think a lot of people, even in higher ranks of ranked play, could learn a little bit from. So FaZe touch the time a little bit, draw a little bit of gunfire. Hook unfortunately falls as the first blood in that situation. Now they're sort of trying to start to trade kills. So Shots is trying to do a really good job here at getting time, trying to stay alive a little bit. And you can even hit here there in the comms. I'm going to rewind 5 seconds. They're communicating that they should be staying alive to make sure that Optic continuously spawn out. So yes, they don't have hill time right now, but if they stay alive, their kills matter more because Optic will spawn the other side of the map. So yeah, Optic are doing a really good job here of just not giving their life up too easily. Cell's probably playing his life a little bit too much there because the rest of his team are spawning out, and he's stopping Optic from spawning in. But what I really, really love is the play from Hook right here. Look how deep Hook is. I'm going to pull that back a little bit, but he plays this so early. I'm looking at player number 1. That is the spawn you want for P3 and P4, as I've said. And Hook's doing a really good job of holding that.
Yeah, but Hook's already out, and I mean, listen, I think if you are Optic, you are happy about this, that you have this lead. Another P2 where...
Again, P3's been live for 5 seconds, and you have nobody even near the hill.
But you just kept it messy. 2 players were able to play their life for so long. And while it didn't allow...
The 2 kills go to the way of Optic, make that 3. And now they've got the pool P4 control. They have this, as Maven says, they've got the control of this hill. They've got control of P4 spawns. This is where Optic, I think, take over. And they haven't got P3 and then sat back and relaxed. They've got P3. They've got someone blocking. They've got someone watching the middle of the map. They've spread across the map so that FaZe can't get through. There's no way they can leak, and that's something that a lot of people can take and use in ranked play for sure.
From deep, great shots into a couple, but not actually able to get the kill. And this is what I'm talking about, his ability to survive. Finally going to get put.
So Drowser manages to get a really nice 2-piece there. Unfortunately, gets traded by Hook.
Still have Hook here trying to heat up. He was 11 and 17, now on 4 straight, battling back towards even. Minor lead for Optic Texas. 10 seconds remaining on the point. But Hook's been the guy a couple of times.
So what FaZe I think are relying on here is just battling through P3. What's strange, and I think what causes the benefit of what causes Optic's score just to fly ahead, is that FaZe for some reason have not put any emphasis on trying to rotate round the back of the hill. Now the reason I think that is because there's a little bit of mind games going on where they think, okay, Optic's going to be making sure that we can't come down this right hand street. They're going to be making sure I can't down middle. So they've probably got less defense on P3, which means if we just get time on P3, we then need less time on P4. Now, unfortunately, that's not been the case. Optic have managed, although they've been trying to block the P4 spawns and rotate to P4 and set up for P4, they've managed to keep P3 really scrappy, which, you know, tip my hat to them because it's a difficult thing to do at the same time. But that unfortunately has meant that FaZe now are in a sticky situation going into P4. So Mercules is doing a really good job here, staying alive, really being annoying. Look at the mini map. You had 3 people at that point focusing on him, and now P4 pops. FaZe are nowhere near it. Optic have got good spawns, and they've got a lot of map control as well. Again, you've got players in the back, you've got a player on time, and you've got players push through. So not only have they got the hill to worry about, but in order to get to the hill, they know that Shotzi's lurking somewhere. Shotzi's one of them really annoying players, so they need to know that they're accounting for him when they're pushing through the gaps. You've got the ARs on the right, you've got, you know, I think this is a 4 AR hill at this point. So unfortunately, For Optic, Mercules actually loses a huge gunfight. He was in the hill at the time. Celian takes the gunfight on in play number 8, wins that gunfight, which means that because Celian managed to win the kill on the hill itself, Optic now have to break their defense to put someone on the objective. So rather than Celian killing someone off the objective, and potentially, you know, the objective still counting up and up and up for Optic, they managed to get the kill on Mercules, who was on the OBJ, and now Optic have to worry about getting on the hill as well as just holding the spawn. But as I say, these spawns are super sticky. It's going to be really hard for Optic to not succeed when they have these spawns, and that's why I say I'm not sure what caused Faze to push P3. A nice 3-piece there. I mean, what can you do about that? Allows his team so much time to spawn up and get position. Force Faze just to rotate to P5. That doesn't come down to strategy. That's just someone being absolutely cracked off their nuts. Again, what can you see here? You've got a player in Optic, in Shotzzy, going all around the back. He's basically replicating what we saw Beezy do the first P5. And Jarza just shuts that down. So again, they managed to... This was as... Yeah, I mean, for Optic fans, this obviously wasn't ideal. So that obviously tilts Optic a little bit. I mean, it tilted me. I think he gets him again at some point, which obviously isn't ideal. But what's interesting here, as I say, is focusing on the strategy, is that Faze managed to shut down 2 players from Optic. Oh, sorry. 2 players on Optic who were trying to rotate around the left. So you had, I think, Hook was trying to, maybe Shotzzy was trying to, I can't recall. There was 2 players from Optic who tried to get around Burger twice to try and do that same pinch maneuver that Abizi managed to do successfully the first P5. And unfortunately, because FaZe know that's the strategy, they've cut them off. So in ranked play, try get around the back of P5, go all the way around to try and make that pinch for your team. But because now we're in a position where Optic are spawning one side, FaZe is spawning the other, and FaZe know exactly what side they need to look when they're defending the objective.
This is where FaZe thrives. They are thriving. Abizi's thinking about it again, but instead he's going to get Gunny up, able to chain that into 2. Not the third, though. The movement. So yeah, FaZe managed to rotate from P4 to P5 really effectively. They cut off any attempt from Optic to try and pinch, and they managed to get most of the hill time out of this hill. Now what's interesting, P1 is about to start, and you've got Optic on the left-hand side of the map again, which is beneficial for, don't forget, P2. You can see the emphasis on FaZe isn't always to just jump on the hill. You've got players 5 and 8 here getting kills around the hill, and then they're trying to make that map control. They're trying to step up a little bit just to try and get that little bit more map control and effectively give themselves 7 and 6 spawns at P2. So Optic have got to try and focus on not only getting this hill time, but also trying to focus the P2 hill time as well, because if FaZe get a decent amount of time here and a decent amount of time at P2, they're in a sticky situation. So again, having the left-hand side spawns early on here is ideal if you want to win P1 and P2. So Hook, if you look on the top left of the minimap here, trying to do and make a huge play. And what's lovely to see is that as soon as player number 6 spawned out, player number 7 instantly turns around, because he knows in order for 6 to spawn out, someone on Optic must be back here. So good comms from FaZe there. Simp and Abizi working together, even vocally, not necessarily physically in the same area. Simp spawns out, Abizi turns to look for the player. Unfortunately falls. So yeah, this is a really, really nice play from Hook. He's done a huge job here, just playing fundamental Call of Duty and doing it well. Big gunfight from Jarza. Unfortunately, you've got more FaZe presence over on this left than you do Optic currently, because Optic are concerned about the time. I feel like if player number 4 decided to hop off the time and focus on the spawn over the hill, they'd have probably been a little bit more successful here, but that's, I mean, it's hindsight at the end of the day. And FaZe now have P2 spawns, they're on P2, and Optic are pretty much all spawning up, apart from Mercules, who's managed to get into a little bit of a difficult situation. Good gunfight from Simp, a little bit of a pre-fire there. So again, that emphasis, and he gets him again. Honestly, I'd love to hear the comms at this point. But yeah, at that point,
20 seconds left to go. Optic really need to prioritize the P3 spawns because otherwise we're in a really sticky situation. Abeezy's, I don't know why Optic are still focusing on this P2. I think they know it's a little bit scrappy and they don't want Faze to get to 240 to 220 because then they'd have a heavy lead. Optic really need to try to move to P3 here if they can. So you can see Faze already trying to transition to the right-hand side of the map for P3/P4 if it even gets there, which leaves Optic in a little bit of a sticky situation. Because what happens now is, yes, Optic are on the objective, they're on P3, but if Faze keep this scrappy, essentially Optic need half of the P3. They need 30 seconds out of the 60 on P3 to win, which is a lot when you're playing against Faze. So their concern now, because they're spawned on the left here, is that they don't only need to fight for P3, but they might need to fight for P4 spawns. So their attention of, like, just mentally, Optic are going to be thinking about getting to P4 as well as getting the P3 time, which is going to split the defense. Whereas all Faze need to do at this point, because they've already got the good spawns, they need to just worry about P3. So they can just hit the P3 over and over again. And the reason I'm saying this to you and explain it to you the way I am is because it just emphasizes how important and why you really need the right-hand side spawn for P3 and P4. So this is super scrappy. I'm going to let this play out, but this is intense. You can just see how much of a banger this is because of how little time there is left on the map. That's 4 down. But again, because Faze have still got a really good position on the right-hand side, they don't really have to worry. Streak does save them a little bit there. Josh makes a really nice play through middle. Unfortunately, not quite enough. Simp slips through here, but not before he gets 2-piece. Somehow manages to get 2, keeps it super scrappy. Yeah, I think that's game, isn't it? A really, really nice play from both teams there. They both play brilliantly at some points and not so great at others. So, to reiterate, P1, you want the left-hand side spawn if you can and get as much P1 time as you can in the meantime. P2, you want the left-hand side spawn. I'm gonna actually take this to here. So P1, you want this side spawn as much as you can in order to make yourself a better chance of holding P1. P2 pops, you try and keep that side. You want really this side kept. I'm gonna make it a little bit different color. You want this side of the map controlled because it's easy for P2. As P3 pops, you want to transition from the back here all the way over here to get good spawns for P3 and P4. And then when P5 pops, you want to make sure that you're not hitting it just from one side. You have someone on the pinch, maybe early at the end of P4, to go all the way around to pinch a P4. And in summary, I know there was a lot of other bits happening. That is how you should play Hardpoint Rewind at a fundamental level. And that will, if you share this with your team or your 4-stack, that'll make it a lot easier for you to get more wins on this map mode combo. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao for now.